It is week 15, and those waiver wire pickups are so important this week. I'm going to walk you through 9 players who I think you should be picking up, including one player who's rostered in just 4% of leagues. You know my written work over on fantasypros.com, and you also know my video work right here on Fantasy Sanctuary. Let's get into it, because this week it matters whether you're going into the playoffs or whether you're just trying to avoid the toilet bowl. Let's start with Sincere McCormick. Looked really impressive yesterday, had 15 16 rush attempts in week 14. Did only have a 24% route share, which isn't amazing. But if he's getting the groundwork, then we can live with it. He's rushed for over 5 yards per carry in both of his last 2 games, which is something that not a lot of Raiders running backs can say this year. Their running game has been awful. And even if Alexander Mattison's back healthy, even if Zamir White ends up back healthy, I'm not sure if they're going to turn everything over to those guys when Sincere McCormick is somebody who's actually shown some juice and looks quite impressive. The game's coming up against the Falcons, the Jags, the Saints. Look, the Jags can't stop anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're passing the ball or whether you're running the ball. And the Saints are one of the biggest run funnels in the league. So I would definitely be trying to pick him up. I wouldn't go insanely crazy with your budget. But if you've got problems at running backs, you know what you should be spending better than I do right now. Kimani Vidal, speaking of the running back position, outsnapped Gus Edwards 32-26 per PFF last night. He also ran 7 more routes than Edwards did, which isn't a surprise. Gus Edwards has never been a natural pass catcher. Vidal, he doesn't look incredible. I don't think he's quite what people wanted him to be. Instead, he looks like a late-round rookie. But with games against the Bucs, the Patriots, the Broncos, and the Raiders, I think there's a world where he can still have useful weeks, and I'd rather roster him than let one of my opponents roster him at this point. I'm not sure you're going to start him, but if something happened to Gus Edwards, then I do think we would see Kimani Vidal have a big role. Tank Bigsby, the last of our running backs, 46% rostered. Looked best he had in a while yesterday, coming off season high 82% running back rush share, and Travis Etienne just isn't it. I don't know whether it's this scheme, whether it's the way the offense works, but I am never impressed by Travis Etienne. Meanwhile, Bigsby, look, he's not a perfect running back, but he gives you more bang for your buck. 18 carries for 55 yards, which is only 3 yards per carry yesterday, but he got into the end zone, which is what matters, and he also just outsnapped Travis Etienne. The team seems to be ready to pack it up, and this is the time to get your evaluations on players like Bigsby. Games against the Jets, Raiders, Titans, and Colts to come. The only one of them, the only team with anything to play for, could be the Colts, and they can't really defend particularly well. So I'd be fine taking Tank Bigsby and starting him if you absolutely have to. We'll get to the rest of the players in just a second, but first, hit that subscribe button. We talk DFS, we talk best ball, we talk redraft, and most importantly, Dynasty season's coming, and Rich's Dynasty content is up there with the very best in the industry. So hit that subscribe button so you get a head start on your leagues for 2025. Adam Thielen, our cover boy, 53% rostered. I try to stay below 50% rostered players typically when I'm here giving you these suggestions, but it's hard to ignore what Adam Thielen's doing. Over the last 2 games, he's had 21 targets. He's turned those into 201 yards and 1 touchdown in those games. Bryce Young is straight out dealing and came so close. A Xavier Legette catch away from possibly beating the Eagles, who had won, 8 in a row, 7 in a row at that point. The games coming up for Thielen look really appetizing as well. The Cowboys, who can't defend anyone. The Cardinals, who are incredibly up and down. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who've now lost Anton Winfield for the next few games and aren't a good pass defense anyway. And then the Falcons, who, much like the Cardinals, are incredibly up and down. I think Adam Thielen is going to be rosterable and startable every single week for the rest of the season. Jameis Winston, 48% rostered. Now, Jameis might not be startable every week. We've seen what the Jameis Winston experience can be like. He can be a top 12 quarterback, or he can slip below that, and he can have those nightmare games where he's praying to God to deliver him from pick sixes. But he has had 3 top 12 quarterback finishes in his last 4 games, 6 touchdowns, 709 passing yards in the last 2. It's absurd what Jameis Winston is doing. And of course, he's liable to brain farts. But the Week 16 matchup with the Bengals looks really fun. More and more Bengals players seem to be getting put on IR to end the season, just dialing it in now. And I think that Jameis Winston against that pass defense is going to go 400 yards, and I want to roster him for that matchup, if nothing else. Quentin Johnston. I know how miserable it can be with Quentin Johnston. I think that there's definitely a question about how much talent he really has. But 7 receiving touchdowns is pretty noteworthy. And at a certain point, you have to say, he keeps getting into the end zone. He keeps getting away with it. And I can't really ignore it. And Justin Herbert seems to trust him. Lad McConkey keeps getting beaten up, keeps missing time, missed this week's game, missed practice time. Meanwhile, Quentin Johnston, he's out there, he's playing, and most of the time he's catching balls. Tampa Bay up next, like we already said, their pass defense is very poor. Then the Patriots, very poor. Then the game after that against the Broncos, you probably want to avoid that one. But if you're playing in Week 18, Las Vegas, that's another one that you don't need to be afraid of. Drake Maye, 13% rostered. Over 24 rushing yards in every game since Week 7. There's over 200 passing yards in all but one game. That game came against the Chicago Bears pass defense, who are a bit of a difficult matchup, even for teams at this point in the season, with the Bears pass defense getting a little worse than it was early on. They're still good enough to give a rookie like Drake Maye a hard time. They play the Cardinals, the Bills, the Chargers, and then the Bills again in Week 18. I think we're going to see plenty of good from Drake Maye coming out of a bye week. This is a guy who, remember, back in summer, the reps weren't dedicated to him. They were dedicated to Jacoby Brissett. So having the bye week, that extra bit of time for things to be focused around him, I think we're going to see an even stronger stretch from Drake Maye over these last few games. Juwan Johnston, 10% rostered. 4 of 5 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown in Week 14. So 3 more targets than Foster Moreau. I was worried that Foster Moreau might end up taking a bit of time. It seems like Foster Moreau keeps popping up at points this year and just getting those high-value catches when they're needed. But yesterday, Juwan Johnston was kind of used much more like a wide receiver. He was a wide receiver in college, and only Alvin Kamara and MVS saw more targets. Now, obviously, we've got the quarterback situation being less than ideal, with Derek Carr breaking a bone in his non-throwing hand. I think maybe Derek Carr misses one game most. Derek Carr is going to want to be out there. He's playing for his future. And I think if Derek Carr's out there with one hand, I'd be quite happy putting Juwan Johnston out there. Last player, Calcaterra, 4% rostered. Dallas Goedert's fantasy season, it's over. He's on injured reserve. He should be back for the playoffs. But for the here and now, it's Calcaterra season. He scored his first career touchdown this Sunday, and they have games against the Steelers, which should be very competitive. The Commanders, which is going to be an important one for the division. The Cowboys, who can't defend a single thing. And then the Giants, who are well and truly toast by now. I don't think Calcaterra is somebody I'd want to start in every league. There are probably stronger options out there, but I wouldn't mind just grabbing him and putting him on my bench. Or if you're playing in a particularly deep league and you want to play the matchups in Washington and Dallas, I think those are going to be very fantasy friendly. And look, that one, it's a bit of a dart throw, but Calcaterra's had some moments when Dallas Goedert hasn't been on the field. Those are your Week 15 waivers. I want you to absolutely smash it this week and get on to Week 16 so we can come back next week and talk about how to crush in the semi-final week. Leave your comments and questions down below. We answer absolutely every single thing here on the Fantasy Sanctuary. We just want to help you win. We'll be back later this week for our Week 15 preview show. And of course, Tyler's got underdog content coming your way. Appreciate you checking us out today. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button.